Greetings, budding scientists. I know I'm a familiar face to many of you, but if we haven't met yet, my name is Miss Julie or Mrs. Pernice, and I'm one of the children's librarians at Bayport-Blue Library. And this is a video on how to make crystal snowflakes. There are some items we're going to need from around the house to do both parts of this experiment. I've included a list in the grab and go bag so you can collect them now, or you can watch the video and then collect them once it's done and rewatch the video if you're not clear on some of the steps. Each grab and go bag has enough pipe cleaners and borax to make 2 crystal snowflakes. You can choose, depending on the size of your container, to suspend both of your snowflakes in the same container, or you can do the experiment twice. I'm going to go over the steps to create our snowflake, part 1, which I feel you can probably do by yourself. And then I'm going to go over the steps to making our mixture in the chosen container that the snowflake is going to be suspended in. That's part 2, and that's the part we're going to need an adult for. But before we get into part 1 and part 2, I want to talk about how are we going to get the crystals to form. And the answer is we're going to mix very hot water in our container with borax. And what's happening inside the container is that when the water molecules are heated, they move farther apart. And because they're far apart, that leaves room for the borax to dissolve and the borax and the water to become one and create a cloudy appearance. But as the water cools, those molecules are going to move closer together, and now there's no more room for the borax. So the borax is going to fall out of the water, settle at the bottom of our container and on the surfaces of our snowflake and on the string attached to our snowflake, and it's going to dissolve in layer after layer after layer after layer and create a beautiful crystal structure for our snowflakes. Let's get down to business and make our first snowflake. We're going to need 2 pipe cleaners and the string from the grab and go bag, and you'll need to supply the scissors and the ruler. Now that we have all our supplies together to make our snowflake, I'm going to ask you to pick up the first pipe cleaner and we're going to cut it into thirds, or 3 equal size pieces. So 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 3/3, or 1 whole pipe cleaner. Once the pipe cleaner is cut, it will look like this. Take the first 2 sections of pipe cleaner and twist them together at the center to make an X. Make sure you do so securely so that the pieces don't wiggle. Take the 3rd section of pipe cleaner and twist it around your X securely to make a 6-pointed star. We're going to pick up our second pipe cleaner, and using our ruler, we are going to measure 6 pieces of 1.5 inches each from this pipe cleaner. Those small 1.5 inch pieces are going to be the detail portion of our snowflake. From this one pipe cleaner, you have a little bit left over, and I encourage you to just put it with your craft stash and use it for something in the future. Your 6 pieces of pipe cleaner should look like this, with a piece about the size at the bottom of the image left over. Now we're ready for the detail work on our snowflake. Take the first 1.5 inch piece of pipe cleaner and bend it around one of the 6 points of our snowflake. Repeat this step until you've gone all the way around your snowflake, like so. Tie the string around one point of the snowflake and leave a long tail. Okay, on to part 2 of our experiment. This is the part we'll need an adult for, so if you need to, pause the video and grab your adult. Your supplies for part 2 from the grab and go bag will include the brown bag of borax and the dowel. You'll need to supply the container, measuring cup, spoon, tablespoon, scrap paper, and pencil. Tie the tail end of the string loosely to the dowel, as you may need to adjust the distance between the snowflake and the dowel once you select your container. Okay, our supplies are together, and now I want to take a moment to talk about the container. This is the container I chose. Yours might look totally different, but we want to make sure it meets a couple of criteria. One, that it is heat proof, that it's not going to melt and it's not going to crack when we pour hot water in it. Two, we want to make sure that we can fit enough water in here to cover our snowflake completely, and maybe like another inch on top of water, but not so close to the top that it's going to spill if we have to move it to a second location to sit overnight. And we also want to make sure that when our snowflake is in this container, it doesn't touch the bottom and it doesn't touch the sides, and that there's enough room at the top to take the snowflake out once it's crystallized. When we put that snowflake in there, it's going to be pliable and it can bend. But if you have to bend your snowflake to get it in your container, then that container is too small, because once it crystallizes, the snowflake is going to be very rigid and we won't be able to get it out without breaking it if the lid is not wide enough. You can see my snowflake isn't touching the sides or the bottom of my container, and there's plenty of room for the water and borax to cover my snowflake completely. Now onto our mixture. For every cup of hot water, and I'm talking very hot water, it doesn't have to be boiling, but it could be close to that. For every cup of hot water, we are going to put 3 tablespoons of borax. So my container holds 4 cups of hot water. So I'm going to put 12 tablespoons of borax to make my cloudy mixture to suspend my snowflake in. You may need to put more cups of water to cover your snowflake in your container, and you may need to put less cups of water in your container, but you just need to make sure that you put the right amount of borax. So it's 1 cup of water to 3 tablespoons of borax. The scrap paper and pencil we collected at the beginning of part 2 is going to be used to calculate how much borax we need for our mixture. So as an example, my container is going to hold 4 cups of very hot water and 3 tablespoons of borax for each of those cups. So that's 4 times 3 equals 12 tablespoons of borax for my mixture. Find an out-of-the-way spot for you to conduct your experiment, probably on a kitchen counter. Grab your container, put the right amount of very hot water in the container that you need, and the amount of borax that you calculated with your scrap paper. Pick up the spoon and mix and mix and mix until all the borax has dissolved. And you'll know it's dissolved when the mixture has become very cloudy. Once that happens, you can take your dowel with your snowflake on it and suspend it in the middle of your container. A budding scientist in my home made this turquoise snowflake. This photo was taken about 3 minutes after the borax and water mixture was made. I wound up suspending my white snowflake in the same container, as there was plenty of room for 2 snowflakes. And now we wait 24 hours for our mixture to cool and our crystals to form on our snowflake. So I'm going to pause the video now, and I'm going to check back in 24 hours and show everyone what our snowflake looks like. Crystals have formed on the walls of the container, on the bottom of the container, all over the snowflakes, and on the string attached to our snowflake that is submerged in the mixture. I think that this experiment was a success. You can see on the snowflake there are crystals everywhere, and the snowflake that it was suspended with is also covered in beautiful crystals. If you find that you did not get results like mine, I don't want you to think about the experiment as a failure, because good scientists always learn something from their experiments. So if you didn't get the results you wanted, I want you to think about what could go differently the next time you do this experiment to get the results that you'd like. So now that our experiment is complete, what are we going to do with our snowflakes? I would suggest that you cut the string off of the snowflake and tie a nice ribbon around it. If you hang it in the window, the sunlight will catch on the crystals and create a stunning effect. You could certainly give the snowflake as a gift as well, but my personal favorite is the perfect pair of winter earrings. Thank you so much for tuning into this STEM program. I had a lot of fun with it. I would love to see how your crystal snowflakes came out though, so please send your photos to Julie at bbplibrary.org. Have a great day.